Oh dang, that guy's going fast. Hey guys, how's it going? Tool Cruise here, checking in with
Tundes.
We're here with Tunshan, and today's video is going to be a long one. We're going to be talking about our thoughts about Japanese nationality. So is it possible for foreigners to become Japanese? She may look Japanese, but she's actually Vietnamese.
Yes.
And I'm from America. So we've been living here in Japan for over 6 years now. We make videos here about cycling, life in Japan, and we've made some videos talking about what we love about Japan, what we don't like about Japan. And today we're going to be talking about our thoughts about living in Japan long term. So what are the options and what are the sacrifices that you have to make for living here? It's going to be a long ride. I'll leave some timestamps down below to some critical questions we'll be answering. And we're going to be cycling along here in the beautiful countryside here in eastern Nagoya today. So join along for today's ride and
Let's go.
let's go. And today we're filming on the awesome Insta360 camera, which covers all the angles. So we're going to be showing you some beautiful sights along the way. Okay. And we actually live on the edge of the city, so we start here sort of in the countryside kind of area. And we've got all the rice fields here. Everyone's planting the rice for the summer. We're just starting to get some warm weather here now. And we're still technically in the rainy season, but luckily we've got a break from the rainy season today. So we've got this beautiful sunny day. Perfect day for filming this video. Anyway, so let's get into today's theme. First, I want to talk about with the review for anyone who's new to the channel who doesn't know about us. So like I mentioned before, my name's Cruz. I'm from America and I've been living here about 6 years. I'm married to my wife here. She's Vietnamese and we've both been living here a total about 6 years, but we've been married and we've known each other for about 3 years now. And we're thinking about what our plans are for the long term. What are we going to be doing? Are we going to be moving to Vietnam? Are we going to be moving to America? Or should we continue building our life here in Japan? So we both came here to Japan for different reasons. I made a whole video talking about that, but basically I came here for the experience and she came here to make money so she could support her family back home in Vietnam. And since then, we've grown accustomed to the life here in Japan. Like, there's an amazing quality of life here. The people are extremely nice, some really good food. It's a really safe country. Honestly, there's so many good points about living in Japan. There's too many to mention, and that's not the focus in today's video. So, but what are the basic options for living in Japan long term? It really comes down to 3 different options, and one of those is permanent residency. One of them is citizenship, so becoming an actual Japanese person. And then the other one is just continuing to work on work visas and work visas. But the problem with that, of course, is you have to keep finding new jobs and companies to sponsor you. So that's the method that we've been doing so far. So I'll start talking about that method and the advantages and disadvantages about it. So I actually first came over here as an English teacher for a university. So I got a 5-year visa as my first visa. I got really lucky because the university level positions, they give you the longer visas, but other English teacher jobs, for example, my visa now, Koko Hirari, is only a 1-year visa. Even though I've been here 6 years, I speak fluent Japanese because I changed jobs and because I went to technically a lower level position from a university to just a normal English conversation school. I lowered my visa status, so even living here a long term isn't a security for you to get a long visa. You always need to find a new company that's willing to sponsor you, and you don't know how long of a visa they're going to give you. So that's the big disadvantage of going from job to job, is you're always dependent on a job if you want to take some time off of work to travel. Japan's an awesome country, but honestly, I don't have that much time to get around and travel because I got to work, and I don't have the luxury to just like take a whole bunch of time off of work and just travel, even though I would love to do that one day. And for me now, being young, like this is really easy for me to do. I can, of course, easily find any English teaching job. I can also get a job working at a Japanese company because I speak fluent Japanese. I've worked in a completely Japanese environment before. I used to work for a Japanese company where I was the only foreigner there. The entire office, everything was done in Japanese. I answered the phone in Japanese, attended meetings, and did translation work for our international meetings as well. So I'm used to that environment. That's a possibility for me. But at the same time, it's still difficult to find more long-term kind of permanent work. So you may be able to find a good position for 5 or 10 years. But after that, as you get older here, you really start to become indispensable. This is the same. This, of course, is the same in any country. But the problem here is once you turn 50, for example, if you can't find a good job to sponsor you anymore, you have no groundwork to stay here long term. They're just going to kick you out, unfortunately. You don't have that stability. And for me, moving forward, stability is something I've realized is extremely important, especially with the whole coronavirus situation. Just having a place that you can call home, a place that you can go to, having that stability, and not needing to worry about, do I have the right visa to stay here? That's really something like a position I don't want to be in. So continuing on the work visa route really isn't an option for providing any sense of security for us long term. And so really it comes down to the main two options, which is permanent residency and Japanese citizenship. So between the two of these, actually, ironically, the Japanese citizenship is the easier one to get. A lot of people assume that getting Japanese citizenship is really difficult, but there's really not too much to it. It's just a really steep price that you have to pay compared to the permanent residency. So to become a permanent resident, you have to show that you have like a stable job, you have stable finances, you haven't committed any crimes, you've paid like all your taxes, and you've just been overall like a decent, reliable, safe citizen. You're contributing to Japan and those kinds of things. The biggest disadvantage with the citizenship is the price you have to pay though, and that is that Japan doesn't allow dual citizenship. So if, for example, we were to apply for a Japanese citizenship, it's totally possible for us to become Japanese citizens, but then I would lose my American citizenship, my American passport, and my wife would lose her Vietnamese passport. So this is extremely, extremely scary of a thought for me, and for my wife. The thought of us both moving. Of course, we talk about this difficult subject as we go up this crazy hill. We're going to be doing a bit of climbing today, by the way. But yeah, the thought of losing your home country citizenship is just absolutely terrifying. Like, even if we're 100% committed to a future in Japan, you never know what's going to happen one day. Like, we might have some family issues. Koko hirari. We might have some family issues that we got to deal with. There might be a war or something. It never hurts to have alternative options just in case something happens. And if we wanted to go to America for a year, if we wanted to go to Vietnam for a year, losing that citizenship would mean that when we'd want to go back to our home countries, we'd have to go back as a tourist. Fortunately, the Japanese passport is really strong, so we can go to America and Vietnam easily for a couple months. But still, it's really unsettling to know that we lose that option and we permanently be stuck with like only having the Japanese passport. So let's ask Tuan-chan if she wants to become Japanese. Nihon no kokuseki toritai no? Yeah. Nande toritaku nai no? Koko hirari. Wow, looks like they got some construction going on here. Nande toritaku nai no?
Yeah, I love Vietnam. I love my country.
I love my country.
Yeah, but my passport show
Mm.
the white.
Passport is weak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot go to anywhere. Go to
Yeah.
another country.
She can't even come to my country. Like if she wanted to come visit my family in the US, she can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of advantages for her coming from a Vietnamese citizenship to a Japanese citizenship. But at the same time, it's part of who she is. Like, it's not just a numbers game of like, you should get this citizenship because it's stronger. But there's a lot of like human attachment to that. That's part of your identity. I think on one hand, it's really cruel that Japan forces people to choose like one identity and choose one country. But at the same time, I also understand like why they want to do that. They don't want you like having dual loyalties to other countries. So if you want to become Japanese, you have to be willing to commit and give up everything else to get that citizenship. But to summarize the whole citizenship issue, it basically comes down to it's a all or nothing kind of thing. So if you want Japanese citizenship, you have to be willing to commit 100%, and you don't have any options for going back. So that's the really scary thing about it. I don't like making like ultimatum style decisions where this is it. You sort of box yourself into a corner. And I always like leaving some sort of alternative option, some backup option. I just feel a lot safer that way. And also, of course, being American is part of my identity. That's not something I really want to give up, but it is what it is. Oh, here we go. All the uphill effort is being paid back right now. We get some downhill. And who knows, maybe one day we'll be ready to fully commit to Japan. But unfortunately right now, even though if we could have dual nationality, if we could have dual citizenship between Vietnam and Japan for her, and between America and Japan for me, we would honestly jump on that opportunity right away. We love Japan. If there was a way for us to stay here long term without too high of a price, we would jump on that right away. But this price in particular is a little too high for us. We're cycling by a town called Yakuza right now, by the way. So we're entering into Toyota. So we've got this is the last station for the Linimo Maglev train here. And so let's lead into the next option for staying here, and that is permanent residency. So this one, again, is more difficult than getting Japanese citizenship, but the price isn't as high. So to get permanent residency, you have to have lived here in Japan for 10 continuous years. The continuous part here is really important. So let's say, for example, you worked in Japan for 5 years, and then you wanted to take a break to go back home to visit family for 3 months. You do that, and then you decide you want to come back to Japan. You get a new work contract. You come back to Japan and work for 5 more years. You've worked a total of 10 years, but continuously you've only worked 5 years. So you have to stay employed in Japan that whole entire 10 years, and you can't add your pieces back together. So that's a really difficult thing for a lot of people, and a lot of people don't realize this, so they end up having to work a lot longer than just the 10 years because it wasn't continuous. This is the toll booth, by the way. This is a toll road from this point on for cars, but for bikes and runners, we can stay over here onto the side and use this lane. Luckily, not too many people use this, so it's a great way to train, and we're going to be going up some mountains today and ending by a nice, beautiful river. So I'll be showing you guys that nice river at the end of today's ride. The other requirements are mostly the same. So you need to prove a stable income, you need to prove a stable job, you need to prove that you've been like financially responsible, you're not going to become a burden on Japanese society, you're paying all your taxes, and you're not like committing any crimes, you're not like a violent person or anything. So most of the requirements are the same. The only difference is it's 10 continuous years as opposed to only 5 years for citizenship. There are some alternative ways to make these shorter. So for example, if you're married to a Japanese person, the path to get permanent residency and the path to get citizenship is a lot shorter. But for regular foreigners like us who aren't married to a Japanese person or don't have that kind of connection, there's really no way to make that shorter unless you're on what's called the high expert visa, which is extremely difficult. They have a whole points table on ways to get points. So for example, if you speak Japanese, you get some extra points. If you have a really high salary, you have a really high level position in a company, you might get some more points. But for most people, it's really difficult to get all the points. And the other difficult thing with that is it's not once you get the points, but you have to prove that you've consistently been above in the point scale for 3 years, I think, at least. So let's say I get an awesome job, I have an awesome salary, I work there for 1 full year, I have all the points that I need. That doesn't count because I have to show that consistently for 3 years. Yeah, there are some shortcuts, but in the end, it's still gonna be a decent amount of time before you're qualified. Oh dang, that guy's going fast. All right, we worked our butts up that hill. Now it's time to get a nice little downhill. And let's continue. Jeez. Everyone is just speeding by on that road. And you can see this path isn't the best path for cycling. In the summer, a lot of these weeds will be overgrown. Not too many people are using this. But it's not all that bad. We get some really nice views along the way. And just look at all this nature, all this green. All right, and here we go. We're beginning our next climb. This is the big climb up the mountain. And all right, now that I've introduced all the different options for staying here, the work visa, permanent residency, and citizenship, now we can talk about what our plans are for moving forward and what we think is the best option for us. So like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we've been really struggling with what we want to do moving forward. And we're really trying to think about what is the best decision for us, what is the best option for us moving forward, and what creates the most stable and safe future for us. And again, we love Japan. We wouldn't be living here if we didn't love it. There's so many things that we love about living here in Japan. And compared to our home countries, I think overall we do prefer living in Japan. It's a lot safer. The people here are really nice. The food's really good. The cycling is awesome. If there was a simple solution for us to stay here long term, we would gladly do it. But the reality is not that simple, unfortunately. So let's go through each one. We can become Japanese citizens, and there's a lot of great rights that come with that. You get the right to vote. Technically, you can buy land here. You can buy property here. Even now, I can, on a work visa, we can buy land here. But the problem is, we don't qualify for any loans. So no banks here will give a loan to you, and they might, but if they give the loan to you, you're gonna be getting a really bad interest rate. Like local Japanese people, the mortgage rates here are incredibly low, like only like 1% or something. But if you're a foreigner, you're probably gonna get, I don't know, like a 10% loan or something like that. It's not even a comparison. So the great thing about citizenship is you get equal rights. There's no discrimination in terms of the law, really, at least. And you'll have the same rights as any normal Japanese citizen. You're a full-fledged Japanese, naturalized Japanese citizen. So if you're dead set on living here, you want to raise kids here, you want your kids to go through the education system here, it's a great option. We have some friends here that became Japanese citizens. Some of her friends from Vietnam. They're raising kids here. Holy crap. Holy moly. Apparently this is the speed course. So yeah, they're raising their kids here in Japan through the Japanese education system, and it seems to be working really well for them. So that is an option for us to consider, and honestly, for us to stay here in Japan long term, I really think this is the only option. It's the smartest option, because what became clear during this whole pandemic situation is every country is going to prioritize its citizens, and citizens have more rights than residents, permanent residents, any type of foreign resident. And one clear example of this was when Japan first went on lockdown or shut the country off from international travel. The only people they allowed back into the country was Japanese citizens. So if you were on a work visa, but you were visiting home, like your friends and family back home, and you tried to come back to Japan, they wouldn't allow you back in for a couple months until they changed that rule. And this applied to everyone. So for example, even if you're married to a Japanese citizen, or even if you're a permanent resident, like you've lived here for like 30 years, and you have permanent residency, you just don't have citizenship, they still barred those people from coming back into the country. And that really struck a nerve with me. I know a lot of people have decided to leave Japan because of that decision. And it wasn't just Japan that did this. A lot of other countries also made similar rules. But that really made me rethink things over. Like, do I really want to decide my entire future on being sort of a second-class citizen? And a lot of things, like, I don't mind, like, I can get by with, like, if I became a permanent resident, I can understand, like, not having a vote because I didn't, like, fully commit to becoming a citizen. But if I dedicated my entire life to living in Japan, I built a business here, and they don't allow me to come back into the country that I commit like everything to, that really strikes a nerve to me, and I don't want to be in that kind of situation. I saw tons of people in this situation this last year, like people exactly in that position. They dedicated their entire lives to starting a business in Japan. They've lived here for dozens of years, but there was a period of time where they were trapped outside of the country. They weren't allowed back in, but Japanese citizens weren't allowed in. So obviously the main answer to that is just become a citizen. Like, what's stopping them? And yeah, they're not making that full commitment because maybe they have business ties back in the US or whatever their home countries are. And once you give up that citizenship, you lose the ability to have bank accounts. I have my old IRA from when I used to work in the US before moving to Japan. And just, yeah, closing all that off, you really disadvantage yourself, but you pay the price if you want to stay in Japan long term. I think before the COVID pandemic, I used to think like permanent residency was a good target. That was something that we could aim for. If we work here for 10 years, we pay the price and we earn the right to stay in Japan long term. But now, honestly, permanent resident status has no value to me anymore. I don't feel any sense of security, and I can already imagine like a worst case scenario where, for example, we stay here in Japan for 30 years, we work our butts off, and something happens in the future. I don't know, maybe there's another pandemic, maybe there's a war, something happens, there's some sense of instability, maybe we're kicked out of the country, maybe we're traveling outside of the country and we're not able to come back, and we don't have the same exact rights as a citizen. And again, this isn't knocking on Japan. I think this is pretty consistent with a lot of different countries. They're always going to prioritize their citizens over permanent residents. And I learned this last year just how big the gap is between a citizen and between a permanent resident. And because of that, it started to sink in that maybe Japan isn't a valid long-term option for us unless we're willing to just give up every other option, give up her Vietnamese citizenship, give up my American citizenship, and just commit 100% to we're Japanese, and that's that. It's still a tempting option, honestly, because we love Japan, we feel safe here, we feel connected here, we speak Japanese, and this is where we met. We love a lot of things about this country, but there are a lot of realistic things that are happening in this country that don't necessarily lead to the brightest of futures. There's a lot of growth potential in Vietnam. It's an up-and-coming country, so there's a lot of growth potential for us there, a lot of new markets. Cycling's like a growing sport there. There's so much we can contribute there, whereas a lot of things in Japan are a bit more like stagnating. Things are in decline, population's in decline. There's still opportunities if you know where to look, if you know what to look for. So there's no right or wrong answer. There's advantages and disadvantages to both, but I've always lived my life with the mentality like, I don't want to box myself in, I don't want to force decisions to be made for me. And by giving up my US passport, by giving up her Vietnamese passport, we're giving up two potential alternative options. We're giving up that sense of security, all to secure a long-term fate here where we could live comfortably. And that might be worth it for some people. Eventually, one day, maybe we'll feel that way. All right, so unfortunately, the main camera battery died. I didn't really notice, so I'm not sure when it ended. I'm not sure how far we got in the story, but we're gonna wrap up some of our thoughts here. So regarding Japanese citizenship, regarding Japanese permanent residency, we're not sure what the right option is for us, and for now, we're not gonna be making any rash decisions. And just check out this beautiful scenery here, by the way. So this is the mountain we just cycled over. And this is another one of the reasons we love Japan. Just check out these awesome views. So there's a lot of reasons we'd want to live here long term. We would love nothing more than just getting a nice countryside house here, getting our own garden, becoming self-reliant here, and just, yeah, there's so many good things about living in Japan. But for right now, we're not making any rash decisions. We're not at the point where we feel comfortable giving up our citizenships, giving up the path to America, giving up the path to Vietnam, just in case. You never know what's going to happen in the future, and I don't like giving up those choices. And permanent residency is still a choice, an option that we can maybe go for. We're 6 years down, we've got 4 more years to go. And there's no guarantee we'll get the permanent residency, but that would be a nice reward to get if we're gonna be staying here that long, and give us at least one option for staying semi-permanently. How secure that option is though, we don't know. So fun ride today. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed today's ride and you want to see more ride videos like this. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time here on Dual Cruise.